Hey everyone, and as always, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Today we're going to be talking about inflation.
Yeah.
And specifically the latest CPI numbers that just came out.
Yeah, those were some pretty interesting numbers.
Definitely, especially that 3%, right?
Yeah, the January CPI came in at 3%, which was, higher than expected.
Yeah, definitely higher than expected, and quite a bit higher than December's 2.9%.
Right. And it's not even just the year-over-year change we're looking at, even month to month.
Right.
It went up, let me see, 0.5% from December to January.
Wow.
And economists were only expecting like a 0.3% increase.
So what does this mean? Like, are we going to be stuck with this inflation?
Well, it's definitely looking like it's going to be stickier and more persistent than we initially thought. Yeah.
And that's going to have some pretty big implications for the Fed, right? Especially with those interest rate decisions coming up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this data is going to be huge for the Fed. They're going to have to really consider it carefully.
Right. Because, I mean, on the one hand, if they don't do anything, inflation's just going to keep rising.
Exactly.
But if they raise rates too aggressively,
Yeah.
that could hurt economic growth.
Right. It's a tough situation for them. They got to find that balance.
Definitely a delicate balancing act. So
yeah.
What do you think? What are some of the ways that this data could affect different businesses in different sectors?
Well, I think it really depends on the sector.
Right.
Some sectors are going to be a lot more sensitive to these interest rate changes.
Right. Like housing.
Exactly. Housing, construction, those are gonna feel it.
Probably see a bit of a slowdown.
Probably, yeah. But then you have other sectors that might actually benefit from this.
Interesting.
Yeah, especially if they can pass on those increased costs to the consumer.
Oh, okay. So it really is a mixed bag.
It really is. Yeah, no easy answers here.
So stepping back a little bit, how does this impact like the average person, their buying power?
Well, when inflation is high, your money just doesn't go as far as it used to.
Right.
That dollar just isn't stretching as much.
So people are going to have to make some changes in their spending habits.
Exactly. I mean, they're going to have to figure out where to cut back, maybe look at ways to increase their income.
So really important to stay informed and adjust to this new reality.
Absolutely.
What about the psychological component of all this?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, because like we've seen this before.
Right.
People expect prices to go up.
Yeah.
They start like hoarding things.
They do. And that just drives demand even higher, which just makes prices go up even more.
Right. And then businesses see that and they raise prices even more.
Exactly. It just feeds on itself.
It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy.
It really is.
So how are economists reacting to this CPI data? What are they saying about what the Fed should do?
Well, there's definitely a lot of debate.
Makes sense.
Some economists think that the Fed needs to be really aggressive.
Like raise significantly.
Yeah, even if it means risking a recession.
Wow.
They're thinking long term. They think that uncontrolled inflation is going to be worse in the long run.
That's a tough stance.
It is. But then you have others who are saying like, hey, pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
They're worried about stifling economic growth.
Right.
They're saying, let's be more gradual, let's try to find that balance.
It's a tough decision, for sure.
Really tough, big implications either way.
All right, so let's look at some specific sectors. How about manufacturing? How's inflation hitting them?
Well, manufacturing is an interesting one because they're dealing with these rising input costs.
From their suppliers.
Exactly, and it's hard for them to raise prices.
Right, because there's so much competition.
Exactly, so they're really getting squeezed.
Yeah, their profit margins must be taking a hit.
They are, yeah.
What about the luxury goods market? Are they feeling it as much?
Actually, they might be doing okay.
Right.
Yeah, because they're offering, those specialized goods and services,
right.
and people are still willing to pay for them.
They can pass those costs along.
Exactly. So it really highlights how differently various sectors are being impacted.
For sure. So let's talk about housing. What do you think the impact of rising interest rates is going to be there?
Well, mortgages are definitely going to get more expensive.
Yeah.
And that's likely going to cool down the market a bit.
Slow down sales.
Slow down sales, yeah. And probably even new construction.
Which is a big change from what we've been seeing.
It is, yeah. Big shift.
What about retail? How are they dealing with all this?
Oh, they're facing a double whammy.
How so?
Well, they've got rising costs from their suppliers, just like everybody else.
Right.
But then they also have to worry about consumer demand weakening.
Because of inflation?
Exactly. So they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place.
So they have to either absorb those costs or raise prices.
Yeah, and either way, it's going to have an impact on consumers.
Okay, so energy, that's been a big driver of inflation recently.
It has. has.
What's the outlook there?
Well, I mean, the geopolitical climate's not helping.
Right. Lots of uncertainty.
Exactly, which just makes energy prices really volatile.
And that impacts everything.
It does. Transportation costs go up.
Utility bills?
Utility bills, it's really a key factor to keep an eye on.
For sure. Healthcare is another one that's been a concern for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And inflation's not helping.
It's making things worse, for sure.
How so?
Well, hospitals and providers are facing those same rising costs.
For supplies and labor?
Exactly. And they end up passing those costs along to the patients.
Which means higher insurance premiums.
Higher premiums, deductibles, just more out-of-pocket expenses.
Definitely a burden for families.
It is, and it really highlights the need for some healthcare reform.
Yeah, that's a bigger conversation,
It is, for sure.
but an important one. All right, so let's talk jobs.
Okay.
How is inflation affecting the job market?
Well, right now we have a pretty tight labor market. Unemployment's low.
Yeah, that's good.
It is. It gives workers some leverage to negotiate better wages.
So that's good news.
It is. But those wage gains are often getting eaten up by inflation.
So their purchasing power isn't really increasing.
Exactly. They're running in place.
So it's really important that wages keep up with inflation.
Absolutely. If they don't, people are going to fall behind.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. This is obviously a complex and ever-changing situation, but hopefully our discussion has shed some light on the challenges and opportunities.
I hope so. Yeah. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
Definitely, but knowledge is power, right?
It is. Absolutely. The more we understand, the better equipped we are to navigate this.
So before we wrap up this part of our conversation, I want to circle back to that psychological aspect of inflation we talked about earlier. Expectations can really drive behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
And if people think prices are going to keep going up,
Right.
they might act in ways that make inflation worse,
Yeah. Yeah. Things like stockpiling goods.
demanding higher wages.
Exactly. And those actions can create a spiral of rising prices.
So we really need to stay informed, make rational decisions, and avoid panic.
Absolutely. We need to be level-headed about this, make decisions based on sound information, not fear.
So for our listeners out there, we're going to leave you with a question.
Okay.
As we've discussed, inflation has the potential to really shake things up in various sectors of the economy.
For sure.
Some are going to struggle, while others might find new opportunities for growth.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
So we want you to think about this. Which companies or businesses do you think are in a good position to thrive in this inflationary environment?
And on the flip side, which ones do you think might be most vulnerable?
We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below.
Absolutely. We love getting your insights.
And be sure to join us for the next part of our discussion, where we're going to delve even deeper into this topic.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of strategies businesses use.
Yeah, I mean, some might just try to cut costs,
Right. Try to maintain their margins.
and others might see this as a time to invest.
Yeah, invest in new technology.
Innovation, maybe try to stand out from the competition.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is going to be a time where flexibility is key.
Yeah, being able to adapt quickly.
And for consumers, I think it's important to be really smart about their spending.
Yeah, do your research.
Shop around, compare prices.
Look for alternatives.
Don't be afraid to negotiate.
And remember, it's not all bad.
Right. There are still opportunities out there.
Just got to be proactive.
Exactly. Make informed decisions.
So I want to touch on that psychological aspect again.
Right. The whole expectations thing.
Yeah, because that can be a really powerful force.
It can. Yeah.
When people think prices are going to keep rising,
Right.
they often act in ways that actually make inflation worse.
Yeah. Like we talked about stockpiling.
Demanding higher wages.
And that can create a vicious cycle.
Exactly. So it's really important to stay calm.
Yeah. Think rationally.
Don't let fear dictate your actions.
Make decisions based on facts.
So we're going to leave our listeners with one final question.
Okay.
We've talked about how inflation can impact different sectors.
Some will be hit harder than others.
Some might even find ways to benefit.
It'll be interesting to see who comes out ahead.
So here's the question. Which companies do you think are well positioned to thrive in this inflationary environment?
And which ones do you think are going to have a tougher time?
Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
We'd love to hear your perspective.
And be sure to join us for the next part of our conversation.
Yeah, it really is going to be fascinating to watch how different companies respond to all this.
Yeah, I mean, some might really double down on efficiency,
Right, try to streamline things.
maybe even cut some jobs, unfortunately,
Yeah, could be. But others might actually see this as an opportunity.
to invest.
Yeah, like invest in R&D.
Research and development
Right, try to come up with some new innovations.
that give them an edge.
Exactly, it's all about adapting to the new environment.
So for consumers,
Yeah.
it's really about being mindful,
Definitely.
thinking carefully about their spending
And making sure those purchases align with their values.
and their financial goals.
Right, do your research.
Compare prices.
Don't just buy on impulse.
Look for those long-term value purchases. us.
Exactly. Think about the big picture.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to bring up something that I think is really important,
Okay.
and that's the role of community,
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
especially during tough times like these.
Absolutely. We need to support each other.
It's easy to get caught up in our own individual struggles.
Right, but we're all in this together.
And helping each other out can really make a difference.
It can, yeah. Even small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect.
So check in on your neighbors, your friends, your family.
Offer support where you can.
Let people know they're not alone.
It's all about fostering that sense of community.
And remembering that even though economic forces can be powerful, human connection is just as important.
I couldn't agree more.
So thanks for joining us on this journey as we've explored the complexities of inflation.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found our discussion insightful.
And we hope you'll stay engaged with us.
Stay curious, stay informed.
And stay connected.
Until next time.